Imagine you and three friends are tasked with preparing a massive wedding cake in a kitchen in Delhi. You are responsible for the sponge, your friend is doing the cream, and the other is handling the decorations. If you all work in separate rooms, adding your own secret ingredients, and only bring your parts together at the very last second when the bride is waiting at the altar, you are setting yourself up for a disaster. Maybe the sponge is too dry, the cream doesn't set, or the decorations don't match the flavor of the cake. This is exactly why we use continuous integration or CI. Technically, CI is a development practice where developers merge their code changes into a shared repository multiple times a day, with each merge triggering an automated build and test. In simple words, it's simply the act of constantly checking if your individual pieces of work fit together. Instead of waiting for a big bang moment where everything crashes, you check your compatibility every single hour. You have probably seen the alternative at the office, when two team members work for weeks on different parts of a report, and when they try to combine them, the formatting breaks, the data doesn't match, and they spend 3 days fixing things that should have been caught on day 1. So now that we have mastered the core idea that CI is all about constant checking to avoid last minute surprises, you might be wondering how we keep this from becoming a manual, soul crushing chore. Well, that brings us right into our next step, which is the magic of automation. Let's go back to that wedding cake. Instead of having a human taste the cake every single time someone adds a pinch of sugar, imagine you had a magical robotic sensor that could instantly tell you if the sweetness level was perfect the second the sugar hit the bowl. That is what automation does for us in the tech world. The formal definition is the use of software tools to perform tests and builds without human intervention. In simple terms, it's a quality guard that never sleeps. When a developer submits a small piece of code, the system immediately runs a series of tests to ensure it doesn't break what the rest of the team already built. If there is a mistake, the system shouts an alert before the bad code can spread. It's like having an eagle-eyed editor check your grammar the moment you type a paragraph, rather than waiting until you have written an entire novel to realize you spelled half the words wrong. It turns a manual, error-prone task into a smooth, reliable heartbeat for your team. So now that we have mastered how automation protects us from simple mistakes, you might be wondering what happens when a developer actually breaks something despite the automated tests. Well, that brings us right into our next step, which is the importance of breaking the build. In many offices, people think that if the computer system gives an error, it's a sign of failure or incompetence. But in a disciplined agile team, we see it differently. When our CI system reports a broken build, it isn't a reason to panic. It's a signal that we caught a problem early. Technically, a broken build happens when the integrated code fails to compile or pass automated tests. In simple words, it just means stop and look here, we found a snag. Think of it like a smoke detector in your office. When it goes off, you don't scold the smoke detector for being annoying. You are grateful it warned you about the fire before the whole building burned down. If your build breaks, it is actually a good thing because it forces the team to address the issue while it is still tiny and manageable. We stop what we are doing, fix the error, and move on. It creates a culture of honesty and rapid problem solving rather than one where we hide our mistakes until they become unfixable. So now that we have mastered the idea that a broken build is a helpful warning sign, you might be wondering how we encourage the team to keep the work moving so fast without losing control. Well, that brings us right into our next step, which is the concept of small, frequent updates. Think about the wedding cake again. Would you rather wait 4 hours to add one giant bag of flour, or would you rather add a small scoop every few minutes and check the consistency of the batter as you go? The scoop method is obviously safer. In software, we call these small additions micro commits. The formal definition is the practice of committing small incremental code changes to the shared repository throughout the day. Simply put, it means don't try to build the whole world before lunch. Keep your updates small, simple, and easy to understand. When you commit a tiny change, it's very easy to see exactly what happened if something goes wrong. If you commit a massive, complex change that includes 50 different new features and the build breaks, you have to play detective for hours to figure out which feature caused the issue. By keeping our updates tiny and frequent, we maintain high visibility into the health of our project at all times. So now that we've mastered the discipline of small frequent updates, you might be wondering how this affects the way our team talks to each other. Well, that brings us right into our next step, which is the cultural shift toward radical transparency. When you practice continuous integration, you are essentially living in a glass house. Everyone on the team can see the status of the project, who is submitting what, and whether the build is passing or failing. By definition, this is radical transparency, where the process and progress are visible to all stakeholders at all times. In simple words, it means there are no secrets. You have probably seen projects at the office where someone works in a dark corner for weeks and hides their progress because they are afraid of feedback. CI forces us out of that corner. It builds trust because everyone knows the status of the project is based on reality, not on someone's optimistic estimate or gut feeling. If the build is red, we all know it and we all help fix it. If the build is green, we all celebrate the progress. It turns the project from a lonely struggle into a collective team sport where everyone is pulling the rope in the same direction. So now that we've mastered the value of being open and transparent about our work, you might be wondering how we ensure this whole CI machine keeps running smoothly as our project gets bigger. Well, that brings us right into our next step, which is the long-term reliability of our pipeline. Finally, let's look at the big picture. Think of your CI system as a plumbing pipeline for your work. You want the water to flow clear, fast, and without any leaks. As your project grows from a single cake to a whole catering business, that pipeline needs to be maintained. Technically, we refer to this as maintaining the CI pipeline, which is the set of automated processes that get your work from idea to reality. In simple terms, it means you have to treat your process with the same care you treat your product. You keep your tests updated, you remove slow or outdated steps, and you make sure your team is comfortable with the tools. This isn't a one-time setup. It is a living, breathing part of how you work. We've journeyed from the kitchen disaster through the safety of automation, the honesty of broken builds, the speed of micro commits, and the trust built by transparency. You now see that continuous integration isn't just a technical trick for the software team. It is a fundamental way of working that ensures you are always delivering the best, most reliable value to your customers.